son, Rudy VanVeghtan, is going to be making a presentation to you on the history of the library. Rudy worked from 1973 to the year 2000 for 27 years as editor of the Meredith News here in town. Shortly thereafter, he went to Northeastern University, where he was a member of the College of Professional Studies, Publications Manager for Publications. Some of his authored works, which we have, the most important one to the library right now is The Filling of the Void, the history of the Meredith Public Library, which was published in 1989 by the Meredith News, and another one more recently, The History of Meredith Bay. According to my records that I checked, in 2018, in July of that year, he did some work with the lecture series for the 250th celebration of the Meredith, and did a particular one on Chancellorsville and the story of the 12th New Hampshire Volunteers. And from 1218 to now, to present, he's been a copy editor and contributor with the Halve Main of the Holland Society of New York Journal of Dutch American History. A little aside, which is coming up next week, he'll be making a presentation on 7/5 for the Meredith Historical Society Lecture Series on the Class of Cultures, the story of the Pannacooks, the Winnipesaukis, and others at the Meredith Community Center. So if you would, please welcome Rudy VanVeghtan.
Good morning. An easel stand. Oh, thank you, appreciate that.
Oh. Should be more in. There you go. Yeah. That's a major piece right there.
It's heavy and it feels like it's glass, and I don't want to drop it. No, it's not, it's light. Oh, presented to Rudy VanVeghtan for many years of dedicated service to the Meredith Public Library. Oh, thank you.
Wow.
Oh, and a picture of the library.
Wow.
This is the original library, it doesn't have the expansions on it. That's a historic library.
Two of those little things for it to sit on. And
Right.
FYI, the engraving on the back we did up in our makerspace.
Ah,
So you have a connection there too.
yeah.
Thanks, Marie.
Excellent, thank you very much.
So Jim, I'll give it to you. Come on up.
Okay, I want to talk to you today about a dear friend and tremendous contributor to where we are today with this library. And that dear friend is Betty Strader, who is co-treasurer of the Meredith Public Library Board of Trustees and also the building committee chair. The three great essentials to achieve anything worthwhile are: first, hard work; second, stick-to-itiveness; third, common sense, radical concept, which was stated by Thomas Edison. This quote sits near the top of the page for the New Hampshire Library Trustee Association manual underneath board responsibilities. There is no quote that could better describe the essence of trustee Betty Strader. She worked tirelessly, relentlessly, and methodically championing the causes of the Meredith Public Library. She is a mover, a shaker, and helped to move the library's renovation and addition project from a near lost cause to a smashing success. Betty was first a library patron and then volunteered for the Master Plan Committee, working to assess the community's thoughts and needs on problems plaguing the building. The trustees created a master plan committee that would mail surveys to the community, host public meetings to gain feedback, and then create a report to share with the trustees. The work done by this committee enabled the trustees to see that there was much community engagement in renovating and expanding the existing library building, and they decided to move forward with that plan versus moving it. Betty's stellar work on this committee led to the trustees to ask her to run for trustee when there was an opening on the board about 5 years ago. They realized that someone that hardworking and passionate about the library would be an essential addition to the board. When Betty was first approached, she took some time to consider it. She asked for the trustee manual, read it page by page, came in and met with a couple of trustees to ask questions, and discussed with her husband the time commitment being a library trustee during the building campaign would represent. This is indicative of Betty's thought process. She doesn't jump into things, but considers them from every angle and with the forethought of, is this what will be best for the library? After much consideration, she agreed to run and was first elected in 2017 to a one-year term, and was since elected twice more to a three-year term. Betty is an accountant, our beloved bean counters, and was elected co-treasurer of the board. She was largely responsible for the library's $1 million trust fund. She led the committee to find a new investment firm and helped negotiate a contract with that firm that was much more favorable to the library than the previous one. The library's investments have never done so well. She was as frugal with the library's money as if it were her own, always looking for ways to make what the library had go further. She sat on the library's budget committee and attended town budget meetings in case she was needed to advocate for the library behalf. Betty was appointed to the building committee as building committee chair by the trustees, a very wise decision. She coined the phrase, which she used at all public meetings, the best possible library for the best possible price. She has been visiting Meredith Public Library since she was a girl, loves the library and everything about it. She was dedicated to preserving the historic nature of the original 1900 building, while still giving the citizens of Meredith a modern, safe, and accessible facility. She sharpened her pencil every day to find a way to give the community a beautiful building within the trustees' budget. Early on, she helped to negotiate a contract with the architect, talking him down to a price the trustees could afford. When the trustees received an initial estimate from the proposed construction team, she went through every line item, asking questions about how those prices were reached and how the team might bring the cost down, and then led the building committee on a journey to whittle down the estimate to a price tag of $5 million. A price that the committee felt the community could support. Trustees are encouraged to speak up, speak out, and speak for the library. Betty was more than comfortable doing all of the above. She spoke to local clubs, organizations, PTO at numerous public meetings about the project and what the new addition and renovation could offer the community. She met with people individually and solicited public feedback to be sure the trustees were on the right track. When the project was on the town warrant of 2020, asking for $5 million at town meeting, she was the one appointed by the committee to speak on the project. Thanks in part to the time she took meeting with the public in advance, the building project passed at town meeting with 92% of those in attendance voting in favor of the warrant article the first time it was presented. The mood following was celebratory, with nearly everyone stopping to congratulate the trustees on the project. But very soon thereafter, COVID-19 struck the region, forcing the library to close to the public. Trustees discussed whether or not they should put the project on hold. But Betty championed the cause. She felt that the longer they waited, the harder it would be to find the materials needed to work on the building, and costs would escalate. If people weren't working and producing, materials would be scarce. Trustees decided to move ahead, and this was a very wise decision, as we all now know. Ground was broken during the summer of 2020, and the addition steel beams quickly went up. Though COVID did cause some delays, the addition was completed only a couple of months late, opening to the public on July 13, 2021. Through the year, Betty worked with the building committee, every aspect of the project in their weekly meetings. Due to COVID, many prices were coming in higher than originally estimated, and the team had to find ways to keep costs down. Betty worked every day examining the budget, seeking other vendors, and at times even driving with her husband to pick up materials when worker shortages started to slow down the project. She found volunteers who were color experts, interior designers, even landscapers to assist us. She wasn't afraid to work with vendors to let them know we were struggling with our budget. And many times prices that seemed firm came down to a number that could be accepted. The library, when it was in the renovation phase, for this part, Betty and the team spent a considerable amount of time researching the historic building. They found an article in the Library Journal from 1901 with original photos of the library's interior that the committee had never seen before. It was the original building plans, which the trustees hadn't been able to find, and described in detail every nook and cranny of the building. This information helped the team greatly. Again, Betty found someone to help with historic paint colors that would have been correct for the period, found a vendor who sold lights that closely resembled the original lights, and worked with a local vendor to find modern furniture. Rick Ippolito's Furniture was a huge help, okay? That had the look and feel of the Victorian era. Since this is the part of the library most patrons love and want to preserve, this part of the project received extra attention from her. She has many fond memories from her own childhood spent in the historic building. Finally, Betty is was the trustee liaison to the Meredith Library Fund. The fund has raised over $1 million of the $5 million for the project. Betty worked with the fund to help identify donors and draft documents. She attended fund meetings and reported back to the trustees. And she and her family are also donors to the fund. The Lang Lift, catchy, it all works. So the New Hampshire Library Trust Association Trustee Manual summarizes 11 traits all trustees should have, including knowledge of the importance of a library to the community, commitment to advocacy, lifelong learning, willingness to invest time and effort into the trustee duties, a strong sense of community, and maybe most important, a sense of humor. Betty has more than demonstrated that she had and has all of these traits. With her leadership, guidance, and persistence, there were many times, without her leadership, guidance, and persistence, there were many times the library building project could have failed to move forward. Because of this, as well as her passion and commitment to the library, the Meredith Public Library Board of Trustees believes Betty Strader richly deserves this recognition and award for an exceptional job well done. Please join me. Gotcha. And you must come forward.
Okay, first of all, that lady sounds like a pain in the butt to work with.
I'll agree.
Okay.
I thank you for those kind words.
And this is a card signed by copious people saying terrible things about you.
Well, I can understand that.
Yeah. Thank you very much,
Thank you
dear.
all, thank you for
Good
those
stuff.
kind words.
Is not able to be with us today, and so the award we will give her, get that to her in the next few days as we can. Rudy referred to some of the history of Lydia's work here, so I'll cut through some of what I put together and try to make it more abbreviated. Lydia began her work at the Meredith Public Library as a volunteer friend in 1970. She officially joined the Meredith Public Library staff as a fill-in assistant in 1973, and in 75 became assistant librarian. In 1976, Lydia and Nancy Sherman shared library operation responsibilities in then librarian Marion Watson's absence. After Marion's retirement announcement in 1978, the trustees in December of that year named Lydia to be Mrs. Watson's replacement as head librarian director beginning in 1979. Outside of the library, Lydia teamed with Jean Shute, Interlakes Elementary reading supervisor, to initiate a reading as fundamental program at the elementary school. Additionally, she had studied elementary education and music at Plymouth State College, referenced by what Rudy had to say, and UNH, and was active in the League of New Hampshire Craftsmen, the Saucy Poppet Theater, and was also supervisor of the town's voting checklist. The decade of the 1980s saw much growth at the library. In 1980 and 81, the library offered interlibrary loans of books and films to the Golden View Healthcare Center, and many community clubs and programs came to the library to attend lectures and meetings and to take advantage of the library's costume lending service. In 1983, because of the high material circulation then at the library, the Polaroid Corporation's free camera lending service program donated 4 additional Sun cameras to the MPL's camera lending service. In 1985, Lydia was elected president of the New Hampshire Library Association at its annual spring conference in Bretton Woods. The association represented 390 librarians, library trustees, friends, etc. Lydia's immediate responsibility for that organization was to serve as liaison between the New Hampshire State Librarian and Association membership, to be spokesperson for NHLA and other state associations, and relationship with the state legislature. As stated earlier by Rudy in his discussion, during this period of time, the library offered its facilities to community clubs and organizations for their use, but it was becoming very apparent that the existing library structure lacked space for not only library services, but for these groups as well. So in 1985, the library trustees hired architect Christopher Williams to work with all to develop a plan to address the space needs, handicapped access, and renovation of the existing building. Clearly, enlargement of library space was a top priority to remedy. At the 1986 town meeting, voters overwhelmingly voted to address the library's needs for handicapped access. During the following year, 1987, the library's needs for new and renovated space prompted community members to donate or pledge nearly $90,000 to the MPL's Second Century Challenge campaign. If you've been in the library and never been to the area where the coffee is, you may notice the little mugs, the white porcelain mugs that we bought at the time and gave to donors when they made a donation to that fund back in the 80s. The town meeting of that year, voters approved architect Williams' plan to meet those needs. It was, as Rudy said, for an additional 4,000 square feet of new space and renovation of all existing library areas. Construction began in October and was scheduled for completion in early 1988. As part of the library's expansion and renovation was Lydia's emphasis on the library's new children room located on the building's 3rd level. Also during this period, Lydia consulted with other New Hampshire libraries which were then beginning or already involved with the process of their own building projects. And the library trustees directed Lydia to reach out to the community and its various clubs and organizations about the library's many services. Said Mrs. Torr, as the expanded library structure was about to reopen, we have many goals and objectives for the years ahead. However, all our dreams and successes, large and small, are being realized because of you, our patrons. You will always be our #1 concern. We pledge to bring you the superior quality of service that you deserve again. With a move in the 1980s toward automation of library materials, Lydia saw that the library staff were well-trained for all aspects of Meredith's entrance into the computer age. The New Hampshire Automated Information System was completed for the library in 1997. Throughout her years as library director, the MPL's focus was on uninterrupted service for all and comprehensive planning for the library's growth and future. Above all, Lydia promoted the library as the cultural center of Meredith, and she championed its cause throughout the community, and most importantly, thrived on working closely with her staff and volunteers in doing so. Her greatest pride was in them, and it was boundless. Now I'd like to bring up Paul Eldridge, current and longstanding library trustee, to say a few words about Lydia as well. Paul?
Well, in keeping with Rudy's theme on history of the library, I thought I'd read a portion of the town report of the year 2006, which was dedicated to Lydia on the occasion of her retirement. It reads as follows. This year's town report is dedicated to Lydia Torr, Director of the Meredith Public Library. Lydia's smiling countenance has been part of the fabric of the Meredith Library's dwelling house for some 37 years. She started in 1970 as part-time children's librarian. Later, she became assistant director, then director in 1979. The programs that she has put in place, from the children's story time to the book clubs and art in the library, have been a joy to library patrons for many years. Her management style has created an atmosphere in the library that provides a comforting respite from fast pace of life in our new century. A quiet and safe haven for the youngsters and teens to immerse themselves in stories from far away. It is also a place where a kind word and a sympathetic ear have become Lydia's trademark. In July of 2007, Lydia will retire from her position as library director. She has, however, accepted a full-time position as Nana to her wonderful 4 grandchildren. Along with sidekick Nate, she will be charting a new course. She will be missed, but we wish her many baskets of strawberries and maybe once in a while a chocolate. Respectfully submitted, Paul Eldridge, Vice Chair, Meredith Public Library Board of Trustees. Thank you.